Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, two blokes chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Hello, Suzi O'Shea.
Good morning, how are you?
Doing very well. You've got Neil here and you've got Rob. He's the older sounding voice, you understand.
Yeah, that's true. Now listen, Suzi, before we get into the subject at hand, are you barracking for Geelong or Brisbane tonight?
Oh, goodness. I'm not. I grew up in Sydney, so AFL's quite foreign to me, but I'm going to say Geelong.
Good girl. Well done. Great answer. Great answer.
The two. It's a moment of great fate for us, Suzi, because Rob is a Geelong supporter and I am a Brisbane supporter. So the moment has arrived. Thankfully, it didn't happen last night because otherwise one of us wouldn't be doing the program this morning. But enough about footy. First of all, thanks for joining us at an early hour of the morning. And I know you've put off Pilates to be here with us, so thank you for that. Yeah. We're really stretching the friendship. Tell us a bit about Oiyo.
So Oiyo launched in June this year, and it's just going from strength to strength. We had lovely Clementine Ford actually share a few of our posts, so that has seen a lot of traction now. We're a financial services platform for millennials, so we're completely independent, and we just provide financial information as an educational tool for young people on how to deal with their money, what to do with it, some budgeting and different types of loans, and there's lots of information. There's also a lot of news stories on there as well that pertain mostly to finance, but just some current affairs stuff as well. So
when you say you're a financial services platform, we need to be clear that I can't get an Oiyo credit card, for example, or the...
Not at all.
No, so it's
we're not in any way associated with any financial institutions.
So your news and... is it fair to say an online magazine that provides news and education to people?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can use that if you want to.
Now, Suzi, I don't want to disrespect what you're doing because it's a very necessary part of society, but it frustrates the life out of me that this isn't part of a school curriculum, what you're doing. Is it simply another part of life's normal education for a teenager that you'd expect them to hit the ground running at 17, 18, fully versed?
And that's exactly where this was, this was a platform that was born from necessity because of exactly what you've just said, and that is we don't necessarily get this sort of education through the formal processes in schooling, tertiary education, whatever that might look like. And more than that as well, I think, in Australia culturally, finances is such a taboo topic, so we're not even really talking about it amongst ourselves, be it in our family networks, our friendships, our relationships. That's why there's so much that we need to learn and understand so that we're in a better position to be able to manage it better. So that's exactly where this platform came from.
Now, I know that you're targeting a younger audience, but what about older people, like really, really old people like me at 63 who's about to get hold of... well, not a big lump, but a lump of superannuation. Do you have any education for how to deal with that second phase, important phase of your financial life? We do target the younger audience. Having said that, though, there might be information on the website that might relate to you. We've done quite a few articles on superannuation. What are your better options, how to consolidate your super, things like that. We've got quite a bit of information around budgeting and investments as well. So it's not to say that our information is exclusively for the younger audience, but it is definitely targeted to that audience and written with them in mind. So. Because since I've been privileged enough to do shows on the Pulse, I have found out, and it's very, very concerning, the number of people, particularly women who reach retirement age, and because of the fact they haven't worked permanently through their life, their superannuation is very, very small in comparison, and juggling their future life around a small super package compared to budgeting and other things is still a vital part of society.
And I guess that's why there is so much benefit in targeting the younger audience so that we don't get to those ages and start to panic and scramble. It's giving people a better understanding of how things like super work. For example, we just published an article about early access to super, because you'll find that most of the people that are accessing their super are quite young, because they're not necessarily thinking long term and what the impacts will look like. So we've just recently published an article that, we don't persuade people one way or another. It's simply a matter of giving everybody as much information as possible to make those informed decisions themselves, and to understand that, it'd be great to have 20 grand in your bank account one morning when you wake up. However, what that looks like in the future and how that's going to impact you is going to be far more than $20,000 short when you get to retirement age.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be advising young people to take money out of their super now to buy a new car, or maybe get some cosmetic surgery, as seems to be quite common, sadly.
Like I said, we're not financial advisors. Be very, very careful.
Nicely
what we
played.
say.
Well done.
I'm not going to advise anyone to do anything. My advice to anybody that's considering withdrawing their super is to get as much information as possible to make a very informed decision, because it is something that will impact you in many years to come.
And you've made my day, Suzi, because Rob didn't access any super. I did, and you've just made the bold generalisation that only young people are taking money out of their super, so I'm very, very pleased with that. One of the things that you and I spoke about when we were setting this conversation up was the fact that the budget was handed down a little while ago, and my observation of a lot of, I'll call them financial services journalists, and I use the term loosely in many cases, is they're old blokes and they're patronising, and they talk about small business investment and grants and the pension's going to do. Is there some way in which you can give some insight into what the budget means? Yeah, clearly we can't do a full budgetary analysis now, but is there an opportunity to point out some of the things that came out of the budget that a younger person listening to this program might go, oh, hooray, someone who talks my language rather than the old fart on the TV who just tells about share price?
Absolutely, and it was very unusual this year. We're very used to having the budget handed down in May, and as with all things that have happened in 2020, it was very different this year. It didn't start off well. Josh Frydenberg did say that we were $213 billion in deficit this year, which, I mean, given everything that happened, it's not surprising that we were going to be in a deficit. There were quite a few things that came out of it that did benefit young people and millennials. The first of which is the Job Maker hiring credit. Essentially what that does is it gives an incentive for employers to hire people under the age of 35 that are on job seeker, youth allowance, or the parenting payment. So as well as women, young people were hit the hardest by this pandemic financially. Things like the hospitality and tourism sectors taking the biggest hit. That's where a lot of the millennials were in the workplace. And obviously, they're the newest people in the workforce. And generally when you're making retrenchments and you're getting rid of people because you can't afford to keep them on, it's the last person that you've hired is usually the first person to go. So it had a really large impact on them. And I think the government, dare I say, for the first time in a long time, recognised it and actually has put some things in play to help that age bracket. So for an employer, if you employ someone aged between 16 and 29, they get $200 a week for 12 months as an incentive. And if they employ someone between the age of 30 to 35, they get $100 a week for 12 months. So whilst that money does go to the employer, it is still a very large incentive for employers to look at hiring those that are under the age of 35. So the Job Maker hiring credit is a big thing for millennials. It's definitely a plus. There's also changes that are made to private health. So if you're still living at home and you're still on mum and dad's health fund, they've raised the age from 24 to 31. So now you've got to the age of 31 to still be on mum and dad's health fund, which is also a huge bonus.
Don't tell my kid.
I was going to say there'll be some very depressed parents around to hear that news.
Particularly in my case when it was just my son and I on the family one, and of course as soon as he got his own, I halved my prices. no words back to him, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Young people, stay at home. You can still be on it until 31.
No, don't. No, please, no.
Suzi, you mentioned off air that you haven't been in this sector for a long time, but there's a real concern about a trap, to my way of thinking, for for young people, which will have a negative effect on a good functioning society, and that is buying online. It's become quite a trendy thing to do, and will become more so. It's easy to fall into the trap of doing a bit of surfing and grab that because it looks nice, and of course buying online means that people don't communicate and they don't support local small businesses. Has your organisation done any research into this as to what we might look like in this space in 2, 3, 5 years?
Not really. I mean, we talk about, how to buy online safely. I think that's moving forward. I think that's going to be. We're already seeing massive trends in online shopping, particularly given what's happening with the pandemic. I mean, that just sped up the process, but it was always going to be moving that way. Just with not supporting small business, Jen Donovan, she started online.
Friend of the show, Jen.
Yeah, we've had Jen on the program a few times.
Yeah. So her initiative, Buy from the Bush, that started on social media. And essentially it was just getting all of these small businesses to push their products and services and wares online so that people from all over the country, I mean, it was started from the droughts and then the bushfires, and obviously now with the pandemic, a lot of small businesses are struggling. I think we can still support them online, particularly given that you're reaching a much wider audience. If you're in Tasmania and you want to buy something from a small business in Perth. Yep. I don't see online necessarily being the end of small business. I think what needs to happen is small businesses need to branch out and get their products, get their services online.
I thought you were going to say pivot. I held my breath, and when you didn't use the word pivot, I was very, very pleased.
Pivot?
Small business have to pivot. It's a word that hasn't been used anywhere near enough during this pandemic. Suzi, we could sit here and chat for 2 hours, but sadly we've got other people we need to talk to. Give us a quick, in 30 seconds or less, why on earth Oiyo? Where did that name come from?
The founder, actually, it was, it's a word that's very dear to her. She's South African, and it was something that was bandied about a lot when they were kids growing up. But I did just want to say before I go, one of the best things that's come out of the budget, and this is for everybody, not just for young people, they've increased the spend to $5.7 billion for mental health.
That is good.
So the psychological sessions that you can get from the GP now have increased to 20. And I do encourage people, if they are struggling or if they need that help is there and it's available. All you need to do is go to your GP for that.
Suzi, you are a superstar. Could we get you back another day when it doesn't clash with Pilates?
Absolutely, sure.
And it's just great to chat to someone who's up and about and thinking about young people from a financial perspective. Thanks for taking some time out to be on our little show down here in G-Town.
Thanks for having me. Good luck with the game tonight.
Thanks, Suzi.
May the best team win, and it better be us.
And I'll be in touch for more of a chat on another format too. I really appreciate your time.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, Suzi. There she is. Suzi O'Shea, Editor-in-Chief of Oiyo.